This old big block 5 booty ass boy. What's up, everybody? It is True Sage, and I'm sorry, I thought something had changed. No, I still pronounce True Sage. The Boys comic, it's kind of terrible. I have actually never really read the Boys comic. Well,
he's lying.
He ate a baby. I have heard a lot of people say that the Boys comic was not good. I've kind of seen some screenshots, and some of the shit just looks stupid. Kind of just seems like that the concept of the comic was dope as hell, but the execution, I also heard that the creator of the Boys has a hate boner for superheroes. Like, he really hates superheroes. It has me questioning on, like, you know, you fucking having a bad experience with one. So I ain't wasting my guys' time. But hit the subscribe button. After out of that, we can get straight into the video.
Saturated. What a bold claim. I know. It's such a non-statement to make online.
Am I the only one sick of superhero movies?
The 15th person to tell you that opinion today. You might be annoyed by the sheer volume of media coming out over the past, oh god, has it been that long? Maybe you've tried tuning it out, but there's just no escaping it. You might have become jaded, even if you hated the MCU for years.
You can't keep getting away with it!
Even if you were Martin Scorsese.
I mean, to be honest with you, I never really understood why people were so bad at Marvel doing as good as what they was doing. Some people say Marvel ruined cinema. That doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me, honestly. If people just don't like superhero movies, it's just as simple as just don't watch them. I don't know how. I don't like love movies that much. I'm not gonna sit here and say that fucking the top love movies has ruined my life, but continue.
3 in his backyard. Even if you violently assaulted a trick-or-treater for wearing a Captain America outfit on Halloween, you will never hate superheroes more than Garth Ennis, the writer of the 2006 comic, The Boys.
Wait, 2006 comic? Is that old?
2006 comic, superheroes more than Garth Ennis, the writer of the 2006 comic.
Wow! I had no idea The Boys was that. I thought The Boys was written like at least 2013. 2006? Wow. That's crazy. The Boys comic is very good.
Genre. Once it goes on for long enough, common tropes develop and are recognized by the audience. A jump scare in a horror movie, the dear God moment in a disaster film, the obligatory all is lost moment.
The all is lost moment!
And superhero films are no exception. In fact, the MCU became so successful it established new tropes that never previously existed before.
Nobody has to break anything.
Unnecessary humor.
You beat me by 1 second.
Funniest thing I've seen in ages.
All right. Let's not do too much. Let's not do too much, because the comedy in Marvel before Phase 4 was pretty good. After Phase 4, continue.
Which is why an adaptation of The Boys was seen as a breath of fresh air. It poked fun at what the superhero genre had become, a satire of every soulless company that only cared about marketing and public image. Soups existed in a world of cinematic universes, and to promote the next product. But before knowing what the show would actually be, the only thing the promotions showed was this guy's girlfriend getting turned into jelly by a knockoff version of The Flash.
Yeah.
And that was enough for me. You see, I never heard of the Boys comic before the show was announced.
No one did.
Before the first season even premiered, I decided to read the entire comic run from beginning to end. My takeaway after reading through all of this was that it was alright. Like, I enjoyed it, but it was in the same brain space as Postal. It was grimy, made you feel kind of dirty reading through it, but it had entertainment value. After season 1, outside of the initial premise, characters, and certain events, turns out the adaptation changed pretty much everything. The joke was on me for reading it, I guess.
You know?
The original Boys
That's crazy.
Like,
because I knew that the show did change a lot from the comics, but imagine reading the comics thinking that you're actually going to,
it was
I didn't read the comic.
An edgy teen that thought adding the most amount of graphic violence, swearing, sex, and racial slurs would make his story stand out. Yeah, he's Superman, but he eats babies.
And then I seen that panel.
Novel adapted and then swear until their dying breath that the book was better than the adaptation. This is the exact opposite of that. The show makes small but necessary changes that, had they not otherwise, it would be far lesser for it. Now, is the show always perfect? No. Sometimes it's a bit on the nose with its satire, but I truly believe no matter where you sit on the aisle or what your views on the show's politics are, this show at least has something to say. Something that the comic tried to do, sort of, but then gave up halfway through.
What the fuck was that?
And lets them grow, leading to a story that isn't simply for shock value. Think of this as an interesting lesson in writing.
I'm listening. Edge for the sake of edge. Now, I have heard, I don't mean to be that guy to pause the video. And you don't like me pausing the video, well, guess what? You hoe! Leave. Anyways, but I have heard a lot of people did say that the boys comic was overly edgy for literally no fucking reason. In which, it's kind of weird, because that's kind of what makes the boys, is the fact that they do edgy shit that you wouldn't see in TV. But continue.
Writer most famous for writing Preacher, and that Punisher one-off where he kills literally everyone. It's a pretty open secret that Ennis hates superheroes. And I'm not just saying what superheroes became, or superhero media.
Like brunch. Like, what is brunch?
The very notion of them. He believes they have done nothing but sully the medium of comics, and make them only for kids. Which, I mean, is he wrong?
Not really.
Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman, and then that's it. Everything else, he despises, especially Captain America. Oh, don't get him started on that old Cap. He's kind of the original hater of cape shit, which, while respectable, that hatred goes incredibly far. Goes farther than just making jokes about MCU fans. The way The Boys is written is almost like a manifesto against the very idea of costume soups. And throughout the entire run, the plot follows a similar formula. The boys come across a superhero who is a loose parody of a pre-existing character. This soup, though, has some terrible flaw, and usually it's just the same flaw. This hero is Martian Manhunter, but he's a degenerate.
Yeah.
This character is Iron Man, but he's a pervert.
Yeah.
Oh look, it's the X-Men, but Professor X actually diddles kids.
What? Ah!
Here is Iron Man, but he's a pervert. Oh look, it's the X-Men, but Professor X actually diddles kids.
Alright, okay. So maybe this is what they was talking about, right? Again, I feel like that the author of The Boys, he acting like he ran across a superhero in real life and he had a bad experience, because I still don't really understand the hatred for superheroes so much, but continue. Alright.
There is really no deconstruction of the trope like with Watchmen, or a clever parody like One Punch Man. It's more like straight up hatred. Like you can imagine Garth writing every possible scenario for how a soup can get massacred by his edgy guys dressed in trench coats or the military. In the show, superheroes are allegories for the egotistical celebrity. They will do anything for their own image. It's a game that you play for fame and fortune, and that reflects in every aspect of how these characters think. Drives them to be selfish, do terrible things, but not to an unrealistic degree. You can see parallels to real-world shitty behavior. The thing is, most of that complexity doesn't exist in the comics. Superheroes in this world that Ennis wrote are irredeemable, cartoonish psychopaths. There is no complexity to them. Their mentality,
okay, so they're just flat out just evil.
Status and the corrupting influence of fame, and more like the mentality of the gang from Clockwork Orange. Any costume soup, in some way, is a sexual deviant.
I always thought that this Homelander design is fucking awful. This shit is so ass. First of all, I've always hated this comic book art style, honestly. Some people like it. The only person that looks good is just Black Noir, but, I mean, look at his design. But I hate this shit, honestly.
In some way, is a sexual deviant, a racist, or a violent psycho. Now, if I could, I would show you a lot of examples, but I'm trying to not get demonetized and banned off the site. All of these horrendous things that my eyes had to witness never build onto something. Instead, it just feels like a hit piece on fictional people that don't actually exist.
A fucking superhero diss track.
This hero is gay. These heroes are ghetto. The boys collect more often than anything else pictures of sex acts that they can blackmail people with. Now sometimes there are superheroes that happen to be good people, and if they are, they're portrayed as pathetic jokes who literally could not hurt a fly.
What?
Maybe their only
What?
quality is that
What?
only could not.
Fat guy pisses on them. Fat guy pisses on them. I don't even want to know.
Fly. Maybe their only quality is that they look stupid. Or sometimes, as the comic goes on, there's no reason at all. They're just a soup, and they're fodder for the boys to defend themselves against. Even when they aren't supposed to kill soups, and Huey accidentally punches right through a guy, it turns out to be alright, and Huey shouldn't feel bad because the guy had a hamster shoved up his ass the entire time.
I think, was that thing in a TV show?
The
I remember there was something like that in the Boys TV show, but alright.
Stumbles onto the stage at open mic night, says they're a master of satire, and then says the N-word. Now, just because a story has edgy elements, that doesn't make it necessarily lesser. The show has messed up stuff all the time, it's just it contributes to the bigger story. Showcases how far a character has gone, or what the stakes are. The comic showcases fucked up stuff just for shock value. And as a result, it makes the story less about our protagonists facing off against a corporation and its celebrity heroes, and more our protagonists just going around taking out crazy cartoon people. As you see, despite
I don't really think that's necessarily a bad plot line. I mean, what he's describing so far, it just kind of sounds like the comic doesn't really have a story per se. It's just more or less of these group of guys called the Boys are just killing a bunch of wacky, fucked up heroes, right? No specific story, just murder these weird fucks. In which I don't think that is necessarily like bad, but again, I don't know. Keep on cooking, sir.
Being around the boys in Vought, that is not what the comics portray at all. Probably should have said this at the start, but spoilers for all of the comics and all 3 seasons.
Compound V, I am listening.
It wasn't until season 3 when I realized what truly made the adaptation so different than the comics, and it was the inclusion of temporary Compound V. You see, the Vought Labs cooked up some green temporary V that makes you a soup for 24 hours. Huey and Butcher both start taking V as a way to even that power dynamic, while MM and Frenchie believes this crosses a line and will make them hypocrites. This dilemma never exists in the comics. Despite hating soups, Butcher injects Huey with V without his consent, and then laughs at him for getting mad. Through experiments, Butcher is actually superpowered at the start of the story.
Yes?
Boys are. This ethical question of whether using Compound V is hypocritical or not just never comes up. And considering how many soups they do kill, if they didn't have V, they probably would just die. But what this does is it removes an essential element that makes the show work so well: tension. In the show, whenever the boys run into a superhero, it feels like they're up against a legitimate threat. It's like having a bomb in the middle of the room.
That is true. That is true.
Do whatever they want without repercussions, and to defeat them, regular people have to use their wits and skills to take them down. The reason why the boys hate soup so much is reinforced with every scene. But in the comics, since the boys use V, that threat is gone. In fact, because most of the time the boys are just running into low-level idiots, Butcher and his gang often have the advantage. So the story is edgy dressed in trench coats, just brutally tearing apart a bunch of costumed dorks. It's like Billy Butcher is just Ennis's cool OC that only exists to act out violent revenge fantasies against fictional people. Characters. I don't want to make this a list of...
Okay, I see. So so Butcher is already powered up in the comics. Yeah, that's low key kind of lame. That's what, in my opinion, that's why I like the Boys. It's because every time they do run into a superhero, there does seem to be a lot of tension. Now in these recent seasons, the tension has kind of went away, but definitely in the early seasons, when they ran across any superhero, it was really like they was going against a final boss, regardless of how strong they were. But continue.
Differences between the show and comics. If you want a true comparison, watch Mojo. Both of these have gone through so many differences, we'd be here all day if I listed them out. Because of the path the show has gone down, it has drastically altered these characters. It's put them in situations and challenges that have shaped them over 3 seasons, which can't really be said about the comics. Starlight and Huey, for most of the comic, don't even know what the other is doing. So many of their interactions are just Simon Pegg with a naked chick.
Yeah, also, he was ugly as hell in the comics.
Pretty shallow pools. And nowhere is that better shown than Homelander.
The show improves Homelander? Really? I need to know more about this.
The live-action adaptation of Homelander is one of the best villains in a show I've seen.
Facts.
Birthed from a test tube, born to be a corporate product, Homelander is one big ball of narcissism, self-consciousness, and psychopathy. One aspect of this show's plot is just seeing the mental deterioration of Homelander. Now, while that's kind of there in the comics...
Why the hell is Homelander thigh so blocky, boy?
Now, while that's...
This old big block thigh booty ass boy, what the hell? This nigga got a fucking cell phone in his thighs? Fuck. Why his thigh look like that? Okay, I was told that you have to know anatomy to draw. What? Aquaman, what is that? Alright. Whatever, dude.
Homelander isn't really anything particularly special. He's done terrible things, he's forced himself onto women, leading to the death of Butcher's wife, but the comics have shown that superheroes do that all the time. In fact, Homelander forced himself onto Starlight along with Black Noir.
I'd like to see that.
This right here is a good example of my point. In the show, it's more of a message about workplace assault, and in the comics, it's just...
Everyone's doing it.
The element of his character isn't really special in the comics. We see characters that are depicted in a far worse light than Homelander. Now, as you might remember, I did say that Homelander ate a baby, which is, yes,
yeah, I reacted to that.
In the comic, these are simply shown in pictures. In fact, these pictures are something that Homelander doesn't remember doing. He talks to himself in a mirror, and then suddenly has a realization that he can do anything. In the show, when he does something bad, he knows he's doing it, and he doesn't care. But the comic Homelander actually does. He's disturbed by these pictures. Homelander just kind of is like, I'm crazy now, and decides to lead a superhero revolution.
I mean, I did see that. Okay, this is a fucking fantastic image. What the hell is this? I did react to when Homelander, ate a baby and whatnot in that whole comic issue, and he did seem bothered by it, but it just came off to me more or less he was bothered with the fact that someone impersonated him and did those things that wasn't him. And then it came off more or less like he has a moral conscience. Just more pissed off at the fact that someone just impersonated me. But continue.
Part of the boys' comic, the ending.
The ending of the comics. Now, this is going to be a spoiler, but I do not care.
Take over the White House. Because pretty much every hero had already been thinking about the same thing. Homelander kills the president.
Okay, I reacted to that, so...
Except, there's a plot twist. It turns out, Homelander didn't actually eat a child, or did any of those horrible things. It was Black Noir the entire time.
Yeah, I seen that.
Guessed that Noir was actually a clone of Homelander. Yep, Noir was a clone, whole time. The complex deterioration of a spoiled soup with parental issues that we see in the TV show, yeah, that doesn't happen. At the end of the day, Butcher sums it all up as Homelander was just tricked into becoming a psychopath, which is just the worst twist of everything that made Homelander even remotely worse than other soups. Most of the bad things we thought Homelander did, well, Black Noir did it. At the end of the day, he's simply a big dummy that got bamboozled into going cuckoo.
It was a prank! We were just fools!
Somebody said it was a prank!
What he really did was simply suggest to a bunch of other crazy people that they should take over the country. Don't worry, this plotline is resolved in like 5 minutes because it turns out the military had anti-soup missiles the entire time. So this really wasn't even that big of a deal. They all just die like idiots. That was it.
I did see that.
Dennis wanted the soups to join Homelander's revolution. It's so they could get absolutely decimated by the real cool guys, the military-industrial complex. Everything wrapped up in a nice, neat bow. Butcher just decides to kill all the boys. Wait, what?
No, wait, what? I didn't see that. I did not see that.
Garth Ennis hates superheroes, so he wrote a power fantasy about people not dressed in costumes, ripping apart nerds, with their bare hands. To justify this, every superhero is an absolute lunatic. A narrative that explores the idea of superheroes like that Flash game where you blow up your buddy. The message is just that superheroes are cringe, which might not be untrue in these times of MCU fatigue. But at the end of the day, The Boys teaches us a valuable lesson. To remember that too much hate towards something can become just as annoying and intolerable as the thing it's making fun of.
That's a great lesson. That's actually a great lesson. From what he just described, half of it does sound like that the comic really was just a big mess. The things that make The Boys TV show so good, these plot lines, these moral conflictions, just does not exist in the comics. But at the same time, it low-key sounds like that the comic will still be enjoyable even if it isn't there. So I'm kind of 50-50. It sounds like you can read the comic and just enjoy edgy shit and enjoy superheroes die and it'd be perfectly fine. But at the same time, it does sound like even if you do enjoy, you have to admit it isn't good comic writing. I'm towards the fence. Let me know in the comment section down below. Have y'all actually read the Boys comics? And if you did, do you like it or not, and why? And while you're down there, hit the subscribe button. This doesn't help me, but it helps you too. Why? So you see content similar to this one. If you guys did subscribe to me, I appreciate it a lot. If you guys didn't, I guess we'll part ways. Either way I go, I'm out of here. You gotta keep it easy. And I'm gone. Peace.